Welcome to the Triathlon Sherpa podcast, hosted by age groupers Graham Ross and Angeline Tan.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Triathlon Sherpa podcast. I'm Graham Ross, and I'd like to also welcome to the show my co-host, Angeline Tan.
Hey Graham, and hello everyone. My name is Angeline. This is a brand new podcast focusing on the sport of triathlon, and we're very excited to bring this to you.
So who are we? Well, I'm an enthusiastic age grouper racing half to full Ironman distances in as many places around the world as possible. I'm currently based in London, and Angie is in San Francisco.
That's right. Graham is in grey and rainy London, while I'm in sunny and cool San Francisco. Over the past 2 years, Graham and I have lived and raced in Asia, Europe, and the US. Like Graham, I've raced several half Ironman distances and only recently completed my first Ironman race. We'll talk more about that in the upcoming episode. So, what is the Triathlon Sherpa podcast all about?
With so many Ironman races all around the world to choose from, how do you decide which is the best bang for your buck in terms of what you can expect from the race? This is where the Triathlon Sherpa podcast comes in. We go past the race course and take a closer look at the event location. What's the best way to get there? Hot tips on restaurants and local markets, the best eats and where to stay. And for those with family and children, we help you find the local attractions.
We will also get the lowdown from race organizers, volunteers, and chat with athletes on their experience. Okay, let's get on with the show.
An Ironman race is challenging by itself, but for some, the challenge doesn't stop there. Our guest on today's show, Paul Popovich, sets himself a higher bar. To get to the start line of this year's Ironman Canada, he rode over 7,500 kilometres across the country, from Newfoundland in the east to Whistler in the west, and he's here to tell the tale. Welcome to the show, Paul.
How you doing?
Hey Paul, welcome to the show.
You're welcome.
So Paul, what was your motivation to ride across Canada before attempting your 8th Ironman race?
I've always wanted to ride across Canada, but I could never do it because I didn't have the time. So I got the time now, so time to do it. And my passion for doing Ironman, I combined the two together. And basically, I just wanted to see if I could do it. That was the challenge. I have no idea if I could do it. So let's see what happens. Play it by ear and just go for it.
Well, and how? So I was going to say, how did your family feel about this idea?
Well, I introduced the idea to my wife 2 years ago, and I said, "Look, I need your support on something. This is what I want to do." And she kind of looked at me, and 2 years ago, and she, yeah, right, okay. She didn't think I'd ever do it until last summer. I bought a trailer, and I started pulling a trailer around. And whenever I'd go up to the cottage, I was sleeping in a tent. I wouldn't sleep in the cottage. And she came up to me last summer and she says, "You're really doing this, aren't you?" And I said, "Yep." But she'd already committed, so she couldn't turn back. She had to give me the okay.
Right.
So that's what you got to do. You got to go in at 2 years in advance because they'll never think you do it, but you do it. You should know me better than that, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, I imagine that the preparation would be pretty enormous, like, planning your route and where you're going to stay and put up the night and stuff like that. So how did you make all these preparations?
I had no preparations. The only preparations I had at the start was I knew I was going to be starting at Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and the first stop was called Midway Motel. And Newfoundland was a 2-day ride, and in between, from the start to finish in Newfoundland, there was only one place to stay. Right. That's all I knew. After that, I just made it up as I went along.
Wow.
I had an idea where I was going, but I didn't know where I was staying from day to day. What I would do is I'd sit down with maps, and I would plot out the distances. And okay, I got to try and make it to this point, and
Right.
I'd write them all down to this, okay, and I would just do it. I just
So,
made it up as I went along.
so when you say maps, were you talking about physical foldable paper maps, or are you talking about your phone and planning this
No,
stuff on your mobile phone?
I had paper maps, so I would draw on that, but I would use uh, my iPad had an app on it where
Okay.
it's like Google Maps, I guess, but I used Apple's
Mm-hmm.
software, and I would just put in my point to point, check out the distances, and I just kept on doing that until I said, okay, this one works. This is where I'm going to go tomorrow. And I'd try to plan out maybe 5 days in advance, or from province to province, I would try to do it and just see what worked.
Wow.
So how many days, how many hours a day were you traveling on average?
Well, at the beginning, for most of the riding was maybe between 6 to 8 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the winds
Hmm.
and the hills. The top speed I could get going on a good day would be maybe 21 kilometers an hour,
Right.
22 if I had a nice wind pushing me.
Mm.
Any little headwind just slowed you right up. And
Right.
in hills, that's what just knocked you out. But it was the winds, the headwinds, that was the hardest to deal with. If you're riding into a headwind for 6 and 7 hours, that's what drains you.
Yeah.
At least hills, get to the top, you got a
Mm.
little reward coming down. You can
Yeah.
coast it, but the headwinds, you just got to keep grinding it out, hour after hour.
You obviously you were training as you're going along. Did you actually have a training plan, or was it also off the cuff?
Yeah, everything was off the cuff.
Mm.
There's no. I don't think. Well, I figured out that in the 30-week period that I trained for an Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
That's including indoor time during the winter on a spinning bike. So I just averaged it out by the hour. I would put in about 5,500 kilometers in 30 weeks.
Right.
Okay, I did, including the races. Well, I guess you can't include the races, but I cycled 7,500 kilometers
Mm.
half that time. So that's, and then I think I ran about 300 kilometers, and I only got in about 10 swims. I couldn't find water anywhere, so
Right.
swimming was kind of put to the side. No one
Uh-huh.
likes to swim anyways.
Yeah.
You had to do some.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, everything was I made up as I went along, and I just hope for the best and expect the worst.
Right. So along the way, did you do any races?
I did a half Ironman in Calgary, July 28th,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of worked in the schedule. I had a good race. I think I was sixth in my age group. I had the fastest run time
Right.
Nice.
for the third straight half Ironman that I've done in the last couple of years. But I was a little slower on the bike, but I
Mhm.
expected that because you don't have the gears. The top speed on the bike going downhill would be maybe 50. Everyone's passing you going 70. I'm kind of yelling, "Hey, wait for me! I'm coming!" My legs spin around, my butt starts bouncing around, and you have to stop pedaling because then it gets a little dangerous. That was the hardest part.
Right. So
Yeah.
when you're out there by yourself with this trailer behind you, what did you encounter? Was there anything unusual? So obviously you would have had some some tough weather conditions, and I assume you had a couple of flat tires. Was there anything else that caused a bit of a drama in your day?
Mm.
Well, the weather at the beginning, the first month, it was cold and rainy and windy. Out,
Mm.
even the people that I passed were complaining how cold a summer and spring it's been. But I had to deal with the cold, and I had the proper gear. I had to keep moving. You can't stop. That's why I kept on getting ahead of myself. I was putting in more mileage
Right.
than I should have been, maybe, but I had to keep moving, and there was no place to swim and run, and all the campsites were closed down. It was still too early in the season, and it was too wet. So I didn't like sitting around, so I just kept going. I'd get to my next spot, then I'd dry out, rest, get up, and move again. I didn't. the only flat tires I encountered were in my trailer. I had 6 flats in my trailer. I didn't have a flat on my bike.
Wow.
3 tires. I wore out 3 tires. But my trailer, I got 6 flats on my trailer. They pick up these little metal slivers off the highway, I think, from the blown out tires from trucks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it was soft rubber, and then it would make its way into the tire, and then I ended up picking them out with my needle nose pliers at the end of the day. So I just kept on rotating tubes. I had patches all over the place. I had to pick up another patch kit just to make sure I didn't get stuck in the middle somewhere. But not a flat tire on the bike. I went through a set of brake pads. I wore out a set of brake pads, but I think that was because of all the rain in the first third of the trip. Just wore them down too fast.
So, how did you manage your nutrition? Did you have to carry all your food with you, or did you just stop and did you do McDonald's drive-through?
No, I didn't do too many McDonald's other than stopping for their smoothies. I like their smoothies, but I carried maybe 3 days of food with me at all times. But it was all craft dinners, sidekick noodle packages, and cans of tuna. I kept it pretty simple.
Okay.
And I used a lot of wraps instead of bread, which would get all mushy and squished up. I used the tortilla wraps. Peanut butter and honey wraps was a breakfast. If there was no coffee shop around for a breakfast sandwich, I'd have peanut butter and honey wraps. Mm-hmm. I would carry some cold meats, which were a little warm by the time I got to them, but they would last for 2 days. Cold meats and lettuce, make it a little crunchy.
Nice.
I kept it simple, stupid. That's my motto.
Yeah.
And too much food. You had to be very careful on the weight. It's so easy to increase your weight just by carrying 3 liters of fluid or 4 liters sometimes. It just adds up really fast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so what happens overnight? Stay in campgrounds or hotels?
For the first third of the journey, I stayed in cheap motels because nothing was open and the weather was cold, and I didn't want to risk getting sick. So I thought, okay, I'll just go in motels.
Right.
And then when I hit the Ontario border, the weather started to break a bit, and I started staying in campgrounds. So I would chart my course by provincial parks. And I just made it that way. And then every 3 or 4 days, if I was getting tired, I'd slip into a motel and have a proper shower and rest and watch some TV.
Right. So does that mean that on certain days you don't get a shower?
Oh, yeah, many days.
Roughing it all out, Paul.
I was roughing it all right.
Did you have any emotional downtime? I mean, you're away from your family for 3 months. Did you connect with them at any time, or like there must have been some tough times? I
wrote a blog.
Right.
I don't know, every 4 or 5 days I put in and then I'd post some pictures, so they were able to see that. And then with the technology and cell phones, I had a cell phone plan that it was unlimited after 6 p.m.
Right.
Wherever I was, in whichever time zone. So I'd make the odd call whenever I had cell service. A lot of times when I was in northern Ontario, I had no cell service. So, but that really wasn't a problem. I'm used to doing that. Training for an Ironman, you're out there for 8 hours by yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So I think all of us that have done many Ironman like that, it's all part of the training. It's all part of the mental training that we just kind of get used to, especially me. But everyone was kind of close at hand. If there was an emergency, well, there's ways of reaching out to get to people.
Did you have a safety plan? Like, did you kind of let like your family know that you expect to be at X place just in case something did happen?
Well, on my blog, I would write where I was and where I was heading.
Okay.
But yeah, there was, as far as any GPS tracking system, no, there was none of that. If I ran into a problem, I just hoped that there was a motorist coming by, and I had one of those ID bracelets that if something happened, they could pick up the piece and send me home.
I like your spirit, Paul. Very positive.
I carried a can of bear spray. If I ran into a bear, I had a can of bear spray. The only problem was it was stuffed in my bag, and I never would have got it out.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Wow.
I got chased by 3 moose one day.
Did you?
Oh, wow.
Coming
Tell us
around the
about it.
corner, they were in the ditch, and I had everything turned off. I was trying to save power on my iPad on my phone, and I was fiddling around trying to get the things turned on, and I looked up, and they were coming at me.
Oh, no.
So I backed off. I stopped, started fiddling around. I looked up, and they were still coming at me. So then I just took off a little bit further, and then I guess they figured I wasn't a threat. Then they went into the forest after that.
Whew. Wow. So, yeah, tell us more. I mean, like, apart from that moose moment there, do you have any other dramas or any other moments or nightmares from your trip?
The very first day was
Mhm.
probably the hardest day in the whole trip, mentally and physically.
Mhm.
I came out of Corner Brook, Newfoundland. First of all, it was a 33-minute climb getting out of this town where I stayed. I ran out of fluids. I was riding into a headwind, and it was raining and cold the entire day. And it was so bad that I was when I was riding, when I was out of fluids, I had to dip my bottles in a passing river.
Oh, wow.
I bonked. I basically bonked on the first day. It took
First
me.
day.
It was 110 kilometers,
Mhm.
and it took me just under 8 hours to travel that.
Ouch.
I was riding along with my mouth open, trying to catch raindrops.
Right.
That's what I was. I thought, holy jeez,
Yeah.
I planned this for 2 years, and guys found dead on the side of the road after the first day.
No, we would want that.
I even stopped and I was throwing stuff off. I had too much weight. I had too much gear. I had too much of everything.
Right.
And well, that was the first day, and the wind it just sucked the energy right out of me. I wasn't in shape yet.
Mhm.
I fit, but I wasn't ready for that. I got to that spot, and the next day I couldn't travel because the wind. There was a wind advisory.
Right.
I stayed put, and I recharged my batteries, and then I got off again. Then I made it to the border where there was a ferry that took me across the bay into the next province. But
Mhm.
that was canceled because of high winds. Ferry going across, so I had another day spent there.
Yeah.
That was
It-
probably the hardest day.
You know, Paul, Ironman training is very much mental training
Yeah.
on top of physical as well. So, for yourself personally, when you are facing that setback on the very first day, what do you do? What do you tell yourself to get yourself back on feet again and to carry on this adventure, this journey you have in mind?
Mentally, I'm pretty strong. I'm very strong mentally. That's what gets you through the finish of a lot of races. I have no problem with that. I just figure out a way. Even during any Ironman race, you go through highs and lows,
Mhm.
and it's how you get through those lows and different tricks you play on yourself just to get you to the finish line.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no difference than what I did, except I did it on a daily basis. Some days were harder than others, but it's all about finishing. Okay, look, this is what I got to do.
Mm.
You just find a way to figure it out.
Yeah, it's probably tougher for you because you're out there all by yourself, away from your family, right?
That was the whole lure of the whole journey was, but it's my personality. I like doing something that I've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Put yourself to the test. Okay, look at this is what I'm going to try. If I don't make it, well, so at least I tried.
Yeah.
I've got a picture of Babe Ruth above my desk, my office.
Mhm.
It says, "Never let the fear of striking out get in your way."
Good one.
Yeah.
You know what's the worst that can happen?
Being chased by a moose?
Yes.
Yeah.
Attacked by a
Well,
bear.
There's one campground I stayed in Lake Louise, Alberta, and the campground was surrounded by electrified bear fence.
What?
There's a lot of bears down there.
Wow.
So you eventually get to Whistler.
Yeah.
Obviously bike fit. How was the Ironman race?
it was one of the hardest ones I've done
Right.
physically. Now, I've had bad ones from stomach problems,
Mm-hmm.
but this one physically, I was tired. I left my legs in the mountains.
Right.
I had nothing left. My legs were done,
Mm.
and I found out quite quickly in the bike that the bike course was very hilly. It was one of the hardest ones I've done. A lot of people were saying it was very hard, and I knew it was going to be a long day. It was my longest bike that I've ever done in a race.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was about 7.5 hours, but
Right.
I had nothing. I couldn't. I just took my time. I knew it was going to be a long day, and the bike had maybe something to do with it because I rode the same steel frame touring bike.
Yeah.
I didn't have no aero bars, etc. But
Old school.
I knew it was going to be a hard day, and then there were some people even walking up some of the hills. I couldn't believe it. That's how tough this course was. The run came. I felt great first half,
Mm-hmm.
but then it started to fall apart. And I know the feeling.
Yeah.
And with about 9 miles to go, there was no way that I could have kept going, but I would have been in real trouble.
Mm.
The whole goal was to finish, so I started walking with 9 miles to go, and I met a guy, and we just walked together. He was a firefighter from out in the area, and we had a good time, just chatting back and forth. And I didn't even attempt to run the last 9 miles. We just sat where not that we just walked through it, and I just wanted to finish.
Yeah.
Right.
That was it. But it was tough. I had no legs left. I've never experienced that before. But I knew I had an idea that it was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to believe it. But I had to do it anyway.
Right. So were you happy when you crossed the finishing line?
Oh yeah, I finished. That was the whole goal was to finish this race. It wasn't about the time. I knew it was going to be a long day. It wasn't. I didn't race it. I raced the last two. I had 11:26 in Austria and I think 11:49 in Mont Tremblant.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, I knew it wasn't going to be one of the PBs. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't about that. It was about finishing. It was about what I started. The whole idea was the journey's finished when I crossed the finish line.
That was a PB for you, Paul. Really, right? To ride 7,500 kilometers and an Ironman. That's a PB.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it.
It sounds like you've set a challenge to other Ironman competitors out there to do something similar.
Yeah, that you were like 1,000-time Ironman that day, weren't you? With all the miles that you accumulated in your venture. That's amazing.
I don't think you get in the elite or pros training that way. But I remember listening to Lisa Bentley at Ironman Canada about 4 or 5 years ago. I forget which one, and she was saying that she's changing her training program. Instead of quantity,
Mm-hmm.
you do quality.
Yeah.
And that's how I train now. There's a lot of bricks, and I didn't get in any interval works running, or I didn't do any tempo runs. It was some days I was just so tired I just couldn't do anything else. Like just get off the bike after 7 hours and okay, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
I didn't do the amount of bricks that I normally do. Didn't have the rest that I normally do. It was just volume, even though it was low intensity,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just volume. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a fast time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't leave the hardest 2 weeks. I got to Whistler on the 22nd of August. The race was the 25th.
Right.
And the hardest 2 weeks, I should have been tapering.
Mm.
But the intensity was the hardest in the entire trip. It was just getting through the mountains.
You happy with your achievement? Looking back, it sounds like you ticked all your boxes.
Yeah. I did what I set out to do. I finished. That's all about the finishing. That's what Ironman's all about, right?
Absolutely. Is there another adventure on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, I was told when I was talking to the people from Ironman, I didn't know about this, but in order to get to Hawaii, you can qualify, which I'm not there. There's too many good, strong people ahead of me.
Yeah.
or you go in by the lottery, which I would never do that.
Mhm.
You want some type of a accomplishment to get to. Like when I run Boston, you have to get a qualifying time to run Boston. Okay, you do that, but there apparently is a legacy spot you get.
Yes.
I didn't know that. So if you complete 12 Ironman, you get a legacy spot.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So that's I got 4 more to do. So next year I'm going to do Ironman Florida, which is nice and flat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I think a year after that I will either go to Europe, but I think I might do Tahoe, and I might probably even ride to Tahoe.
Okay,
A little
wow.
shorter distance going across Canada, but I think I might ride to Tahoe.
Wow. Wait. So you're gonna start from Newfoundland again? So from east to the
No,
west.
I'll start from Toronto. Toronto to Tahoe is about 4,000 kilometers.
Okay.
Or I'll start from Vancouver, which is I think it's about 1,800 kilometers.
Right.
So I won't do the long distance like I did for Canada, but I think I'll probably end up riding to Tahoe. I already put a bug into my wife's ear, so she kind of rolled her eyes already once. So that means I got the go ahead. She doesn't think I'm going to do it.
So Lake Tahoe 2015. So either I'll fly up to Toronto to ride with you cross
There you
country,
go.
There
Yeah.
you go.
or I'll just meet you at the start line in Tahoe.
You've got to
Yeah.
volunteer.
I'll think about that.
All right. There's a lot of good scenery going across the Midwest of the U.S. Mount Rushmore,
Yeah, I'm sure.
the
Yeah.
Badlands.
Mhm.
Yep, it sounds like it could be a good trip.
Oh yeah, totally. So Paul, you're doing this all by yourself because you're a guy. Like, what about for girls? What do you think? Do you think a girl can undertake this sort of adventure all by herself?
Oh, I think a girl is physically capable of doing anything a guy is. It's just, I guess, like you said in one of your emails, it's the safety factor.
Mhm.
I read a book by Cheryl Strayed. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Wild.
Mhm. No, I've not
And
heard of it.
that was one of the books I read. She hiked the Pacific Coast Trail by herself.
Wow.
And it's all about her struggles being a woman and being by herself, and all the challenges that she went through. You could do it, but it's all about the safety thing.
Yeah, and for safety reasons, it's probably better to have like a team with you.
Yep.
Well, look, thanks very much for your time, Paul. And Ange and I are in complete awe of your effort, and we think it's a fantastic, what a great journey, what a great personal journey. And then to tie that off with an Ironman is
Yeah.
probably beyond most people's comprehension. But we can certainly understand the motivation. If other people want to contact you or connect with you, do you have a blog that they can log on, or a sort of a Twitter handle or something?
Well, I don't really check that blog anymore because I stopped writing in it for a while. But I guess you can just throw up my email. It's email account.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we'll get the details off you, and we'll put them in the show notes, and also the blog. What's the blog address?
It's Popo Tour, POPOTOUR .wordpress.com.
Okay, perfect, and
Right.
we'll put those in the show notes as well.
Yeah, or we'll attach a GPS tracker on you so we could watch you live wherever you are. That's the best way to get Paul. He's always on the move.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to the next adventure.
Okay, thank you very much for talking with me. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for speaking with us, Paul.
Okay, to find out about anything that's been mentioned on the show by our guests, visit our website, triathlon-sherpa.com, and you'll find the show notes in the podcast tab.
Now, we need your help to make this podcast work. While Graham and I will be covering the events we're competing in, we're also looking for other triathletes to bring the event to life. If you have any feedback, suggestions, or an upcoming race and you want to share your experience as part of our Sherpa tribe, please let us know. Drop us a line at info@triathlon-sherpa.com or tweet us at Triathlon Sherpa. You can also find us on Facebook and Google+.
Okay, coming up on our next podcast, we head to the land of the rising sun and bring you Ironman Japan. Our guest Ling overcame a near-fatal accident, learnt to walk again, and finds herself on the Ironman podium for the second time in 2 years.
The Triathlon Sherpa Podcast, by age groupers, for age groupers.